Welcome, everyone. I am Glenda Dawson, and I have Sarah Garcia, Moon Girl, with me, and we are the Paranormal Dolls. And you're watching us on the Conscious Awakening Network, which is on Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV, and many other streaming platforms. Today, we have a wonderful um, guest. Her name is Tammie Chavez, and she is so gifted and has such a great stories to tell us about herself, her hometown, her uh, growing up there, and enough said. Tammie, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you guys?
Perfect.
Great.
Perfect. Thank
Yay!
you.
Yes.
Thank you
Yay.
for having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Pleasure is ours.
Yes.
So, tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Tammie Merheb-Chavez, and I am a paranormal investigator and researcher and host of the Hollywood podcast called Hollywood Paranormal that I co-host with my best friend, Bryce Mitchell-Williams. And we talk about all the weird true crime, haunted places in and around Los Angeles or any part of California for that matter, because it is a very weird state. It's a very weird location. And there's a lot of weird and a lot of haunted places where we're based out of here in Los Angeles. So
And we love it all.
and it's funny because the inspiration for that podcast was our haunted job. So we worked in a haunted acting school in Hollywood, and the school is the location where Charlie Chaplin built his first bungalows that are still there on the job. It's on the premises, and it's next door to the Jim Henson studio, which used to be the Chaplin studios that were built in, I think, 1918, 1915. And what ended up happening is like we would always hear like ghost stories circulate around our job from coworkers to even temporary faculty members and even students and security members about this shadow man that they would see in a bowler hat, and an apparition of a man that they would see after midnight roaming the grounds. They would see him on camera, but when the security guards would go out and venture on the property to see, who is walking the grounds, like at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, there's no one to be found. So that's how our idea kind of came about. And, I'm also from a very spooky city. So I've always been this closeted paranormal weird girl that finally got to like spread her paranormal wings here in California 8 years ago with this podcast.
And you said you're from New Orleans. Speaking of a lot of paranormal activity there, can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing? Because there's a rumor that you grew up around ghosts and stuff like that, or?
Oh, definitely. I always knew growing up in New Orleans. Well, let me backtrack. Growing up in New Orleans is so different. When you live in that city is so different from visiting it. It's a city that has a lot of charm, but it's a city that has a lot of harm as well. And I feel like people fear more the living than they do the dead if you're from there and you understand. But growing up, I knew that there is something unique about the city, and there is something spiritual, very spiritual about it. And the celebration of Catholicism, the celebration of voodoo, all correlated together uniquely in that city, because we would all celebrate St. Joseph Day. And St. Joseph Day is a day where, we pay, our homage to our St. Joseph, who is the saint of travelers, the saint of immigrants. New Orleans is a heavy immigrant town with Irish people, Italians, Koreans, and so many other people, Hondurans. My mom is Honduran, and there's a huge Honduran community. So it was just like very unique to see like how the Catholics celebrated that holiday, but then you knew who the people who were practicing, voodoo practitioners, they would dress up in white and march the streets and celebrate and pay homage. So it was really unique to see that. But growing up too, I got to encounter my first witch. I got to encounter, folklore and ghost stories around the city. There's so many that surrounded that town and being able to venture through those places. And now, like, I'm living in Los Angeles, which is another haunted city. So no matter where I go, it always follows me everywhere I live.
Well, it's doesn't really follow you, but it's because you're so sensitive to it. So
Mm-hmm.
you're able to notice those little details that most people can't. And you're able to see a lot more than a lot of people are willing to admit that they see.
Oh yeah. And feel, when
Yes.
people don't understand too, they always feel like a sense of heaviness. Oh, I drank too much. I'm like, no, that city could be very heavy. And after Katrina, it was very it was like almost like the sense of dread in a way.
Right.
It was very different. Yeah.
Well, it was safe before. And then all of a sudden everybody realized it wasn't as safe as they thought it was.
Mm-mm.
And so this acting school, this haunted acting school, tell us a little more about that.
Oh, okay. So it's like it's smack dab in the middle of Hollywood. I really can't say the name of it because of
It's okay. You'll give me directions later.
The big fancy school, the big fancy acting school, because the price tag just to go there to learn how to act was pretty astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
But the school itself like has a sister school in New York, and it's been around since the late 1800s, early 1900s. But the school in Hollywood, it's a little more in its youthful stages, I guess you can say. But it's like in this trifecta of so many places around there. Like you could literally, from where it's at, you could see the Hotel Roosevelt sign. You could see the Hollywood sign. And it was just surrounded by so much history and so many places that have a lot of activity. The school itself on the ground, like the school itself, I think it was built in the 70s, the structure, but the grounds have been around for a very long time. And the grounds were actually purchased by Charlie Chaplin in the early 1900s. Him and his brother came to town to build the studios. And of course, back then, it took you long to get everywhere like it does here in the city. So you live closer to where you work. They decided, let's build our bungalows next to the studios and just wake up and go to work and make movies, which they did. Mm-hmm. And those two bungalows are still on the property of the school. They're protected by the Historical Society. Some people, a part of the school, they wanted to tear down the buildings to build like a big theater. And the city was like, you can't do this. This is Charlie Chaplin's home. Like this is a part of the National Registry. Right. So those two bungalows were converted to offices and one was converted to the library. And I always felt like an energy in the computer room. And I had it validated by another student who has embodied gifts of sensitivity too, and she could feel and see things. And she's like, yeah, I felt it day one when I walked in. Like you just feel like this presence in there. It's not like it's watching you, but you just know that something is there and it's keeping an eye on the place. So there are a lot of stories that would circulate when I started of a man that would be seen walking the grounds between 4 a.m. in the morning from security guards. And it was one of those things where they would pass down the story to newbies. And it was like, we're not trying to scare you, but you have to know that these things are going to happen and you have to keep a watchful eye on them. And so I remember there was this one security guard, her name was Dulce, and her and I got on and she would tell me some crazy story. She's like, yeah, when I first started, they warned me about this. I thought it was a joke. But when I saw it like 3 months into my job, that's when I knew something was up. And I'm like, well, what did you see? She's like, well, it was shadows. I would see shadows. And then I saw the man on security camera. And I asked her, what did the man look like? She's like, oh, man, he would just like, you have to come in with a fob. Like you have to come in with a card. Like we would know if someone were to come in, the gate would open, but you won't see it. You won't hear it. You would just see this man out of nowhere walk the grounds. And he looked like he was dressed in a sack suit. Like the way she described it, I was like, yeah, that's what they wore in the 20s and the 30s. And she's like, yeah. And then he had this hat. And it was like, she just like kind of described it like a bowler hat. I was like, I see now. So And she's like, yeah, I was told it could be, you know, Mr. Chaplin, the movie guy. And I was like, oh yeah, Charlie, because yeah, the houses are here.
Mhm.
Another story that was very fascinating when I started as the assistant costume director was from my my boss, who was the costume manager. And there's this one story that's to this day, like she, you know, she says it with, like, you could just tell in her face, like she's still kind of traumatized from it. But when I first started, she's like, I'm going to show you this location where we keep certain costumes away from the certain parts of the shop. And I said, oh, is it, you know, just because of the temperature of the shop, you don't want the fibers of this costumes to get, you know, damaged. She's like, no, there's a reason for it. And I said, oh, okay. So we go to the back where the props are kept, and it's like further back in the building, and but close enough to the shop to retrieve. And we go into the location. She grabs this bin, and it's a bin of straitjackets. And I was like, oh, great, we have straitjackets. That's great, you know. She's like, oh, you don't know the story of this. And I said, well, what happened? She picks up one, and there's like, it looked like it had been torn and repaired, like the way it was sewn, like it was repaired. And I'm like, oh, did an actor go crazy, you know? And she was like, actually, we don't know what happened. And I said, okay, well, what's going on? Like, what do you mean? So she's like, well, you know, you're gonna notice some things that are going to happen here, and things that can't be explained. I'm like, oh, I'm all about this life. Tell me more. So it turns out that a few years back, they were doing a show called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And for some of those who are very familiar with Jack Nicholson, that was one of his earlier films. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a play. So in the play, you know, there's these mental health patients, and they have to wear straitjackets. So we needed 3 or 4 of them. And when she was here, I think she had them rented. So they were rented, they were fitted, and they were during the week of dress rehearsals. For some reason, the costumes were kept in the shop. And then they were eventually moved into a storage place next door to it, because there were so many shows going on. I think they were also renovating the theater, and they needed the costumes to be well kept and safe. Right. The storage where they kept them in, 2 people had access to it. It was like whoever was head of the school and the costume director. So she said that on the first or second dress rehearsal night, they had locked the straitjackets and the costumes in this storage room next to the shop. The next morning they come back. She comes in a little late, and her assistant is like very frantic, very, very frantic. She's like, I don't know who came in to the storage last night, but you have to see this. So she goes into the storage with the assistant, and the straitjackets are completely cut. They're torn. And but all the other costumes that were hanging were safe. Like, they were like untouched. But for some reason, specifically the straitjackets looked like someone had grabbed them and torn them into pieces. Mm. And it was a big ordeal. I mean, the head of the school was involved, the director was involved. They were blaming, you know, my boss at the time. She's like, why would I create more work for my shop and my workers? Why would I create this chaos when there's a show that opens literally tonight? Right. So it was just the oddest thing, because no one had access into this room aside from the director and the head of the school. And it was like, who would go in there and who would tear apart these things? So my manager's theory is that, well, could it be Charlie Chaplin? Well, why would he do this? Well, could it be his mom? You know, his mom suffered too from a very debilitating disease, and she was also locked in mental hospitals as well. Like, could it be something like of a trigger object that triggered something there, and it just went off on these straitjackets? So long story short, they didn't want to pan it to something unexplainable, but they did because it was unexplainable. Why just these jackets that were rentals? That was another thing, they ended up having to buy them. They were like expensive, and they were able to repair them because she was amazing in putting pieces of costume. She was a great builder for costumes. So she knew what to do. And boy, was she like working the skin of her teeth. So it was like, why would I cost the school close to $1,200 of, these rentals that we had to purchase? Why would I work crazy trying to repair these things? It just, to this day, we still don't have an answer. We don't know what happened, and we don't know why it happened. But my hint is that something was triggered by these things here.
Right. Well, especially since the mother did experience having to be locked in an institution, which maybe she was not even crazy. Maybe she was just seeing things like a lot of people used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You would be sensitive, you would see ghosts, you would experience ghosts, and right away you got put away because you were crazy.
Yeah. The craziest thing I forgot to tell you too. So after my manager left, I took her place. We were doing more renovations, and I had a new set of students working for me in the shop, and they would come in really early in the morning to fulfill their hours. And I would come in an hour later, and they would say, Tammie, I thought you were here. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, well, I would be here washing the costumes in the laundry area. And I would see like, it looks like you, but I'm well, it's a shadow, but I assumed it's you because, you would come in the morning. But when I would call out, no one's there. And I'm like, that's weird. Well, we started cleaning around that area of the laundry. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, the bin of those straitjackets were there. So I moved them back to where they were. And now people stopped seeing the shadows. So it was the craziest thing. And I would feel it too. Whenever I would go back there and do laundry, I would feel like somebody's like looking behind me, like, what are you doing? But ever since we moved that bin back into the props, like it just stopped, which was really interesting.
Were those straitjackets like used on people, or they were just solely costumes?
They were used on people, yeah. So I mean, it could be, it could be many things. Like that, there are scenes in that play of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and other shows that they were used for, where they're absorbing so much emotion from those acting students. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and if they were ever really used truly in an institution. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Who knows where they came from originally? So
and they could be different, even if it's not like per se haunted, but like.
Right.
Oh yeah, they're originally from a rental house, so I don't think they were used in a hospital. But then they were rented out before, so Lord knows. Mm-hmm. That chain of usage, what it could have absorbed in time.
Mm-hmm. And so you have been into this basically all your life, and how did you realize that this is what you wanted to do?
I've always had like a fascination for the paranormal and spirituality when I was very young. I always especially that was an influence, living in New Orleans and growing up on the stories, growing up learning about, certain religions in my area, and also, certain practitioners too. And then I just remember just being immersed in all sorts of readings and literature, and even shows like Unsolved Mysteries came out, and sightings came out, and I loved it. And I think back then it was a little taboo, and people thought that was kind of silly or not to be talked about. But ever since I moved to LA, I just slowly started to kind of break through the shell and decided, I'm experiencing so much, and working in film and working in theater. I'm a costume designer by day. I work too. That was another thing that led me in my journey. working in a lot of haunted theaters. Like I've worked in a lot of old theaters. I've had my first paranormal experience in a haunted theater in New Orleans. And that like really catapulted me into like diving more in what we were really dealing with. And then working on older film sets in grad school, working in old plantation homes were pretty interesting. And seeing that chaos kind of like erupt, through all the chaos of shooting a film, that is very triggering too. And seeing that all this happened in front of you, it just catapulted me even more and more to get involved, in this community and to try to investigate and go deeper into what we're truly dealing with.
Now, you have an amazing podcast with your co-host. Can you tell us a little about the podcast?
Yeah, so we started the podcast in 2017, and we decided to call it Holly Weird Paranormal because people call Hollywood Holly Weird. Everything is so weird around Hollywood. It's not what you see on television at all. Like
I love it, though. I'm all up for it.
It's so gritty. I've been working out of there for 10 years, and it's so gritty. It's so different. Like what you're presented during the Oscars, the city actually cleans up temporarily, and then it's back to normal. It's back to reality, and it's pretty intense. One day, Tammie. Yeah, it's just like, but yeah, it's cool because you see pieces of history there. It was really exciting to drive in every morning into that city and to be around all that history. But that was the thing, we also wanted to talk on our podcast is the history of Hollywood, Los Angeles, the film industry, the culture here. There's a lot of culture, and people are like, there's culture in LA. I'm like, traffic is a culture. I mean, that haunts us, but there's so much here. And I remember my husband was like, well, once you run out of stories, I'm like, it's California, it's LA. There's always a story around every street corner. And it just keeps on progressing more and more. As of right now, we've been so immersed in a different location of Los Angeles, Little Tokyo. We just investigated the East West Players Theater, and that is a very haunted theater that not a lot of people know about. And the technical director has like an Excel spreadsheet yay long of people who've worked in the theater, and I've seen actual full body apparitions, had heard voices, and had witnessed things that they couldn't explain. And because it's such a small community, he referred me to a vintage store that I'm going to investigate tomorrow, where the owner, was so amazing to tell us all of his experiences and the experiences of the men that he hired to renovate the place. And when you have 4 people witnessing a full body apparition in front of you, that says something, that says that there's something there, and
undeniable.
It's like it wants us there. We were documenting, it was me and Spooky Foodie Ansley, another creator, we were documenting our little like adventures, and out of nowhere, the owner of that building that we were about to investigate reached out to us and was like, I know one of the ghosts there. That's my great grandfather. I know he's there because he died there. And so it's like, how is this all happening? And why is it happening to us? Like, I feel like whatever's there is leading us to tell the story. Right. And there's a lot of stories to tell. Oh, yeah.
Looking forward to that. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you guys go basically to locations and then speak there, or just film and then?
Oh, everything. Yeah. I really do more of the investigation. Bryce comes in as the second pair of eyes and ears. He's like a little more of the open-minded skeptic. He's more skeptic. But I feel like he also has a lot of sensitivity too, that he tries to block. And primarily I go there to listen to people. I think when you investigate, it's not just, I guess there's this like notion that people think that you're going to be a Ghostbuster and just take out whatever's there. And a lot of times it can't be taken out. Like it's there. It's there for a reason. I think at times you have to teach them how to live with it. Sometimes it's not just the establishment, it's the location. And that's what it is in Little Tokyo. This was an area where back in 1940, 42, 45, you had the executive order of 9066. And this is the order that evacuated and took away a lot of Japanese Americans and submitted them into internment camps. So you had all that trauma there. And yeah, it's all like residue from that time period there. So we go in because we feel like people have a story to tell. We want to interview them. We definitely want to bring in our friends and bring in our, instincts and figure out what's there. We work with psychics. We bring, some pretty vetted psychics to come in and read the place, and they're pretty spot on and telling them and us, like, this is what you're dealing with. This is what you can do. You guys are going to have to live in harmony, and this is what you can do to make that happen. A, B, and C. And sure enough, whenever we go back and check on them, we always like to, wait a month or two to see how it, turns out. We reach out to them, we visit them, and they're like, surprisingly, it's been quiet. Little things will happen here and there. Or the activity is kind of the same. Some days it's good, some days it's bad. But, we've learned to, now after knowing what it is, we've learned to live with it. And we've learned to compromise. That's another word I hear, is compromise. So it's really fascinating to hear that and to figure out what we can unearth in a lot of these places.
But that's what I call remediation. You go in and everybody tries to come up with an agreement on both sides.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I get a lot of emails from people that are like, I need you to come in here and take this away. And we're like, well, what is it? We need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. We have to figure it out. And I hate to say this, but a lot of times, especially investigating and dealing with private cases, a lot of it is mental health too. A lot of it is like, well, I've been off my meds. Or I've been mixing meds. I'm dealing with my anxiety, depression, and all this. And it's, it can cause them to see things and do things that they didn't know they were capable of doing before.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's where it gets a little dicey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just how can you tell somebody, no, it's not something paranormal? It might be,
Yeah, there was one case. It was a good case to be on for me to learn that, people, like, mental health is still a stigma. But there was a case where a woman thought that her house was being haunted by several demons. And I was invited by two other investigators, one who was a retired police officer. So he was really great in interviewing and being that eye. He was so observant, and that's what he taught me the most, was you have to have this eye. If you ever do a personal case, these are the things you need to do, A, B, and C. If you don't feel safe, then don't do it, but I felt very safe with them. We walked into the house. We spoke with the woman. She was older. She lived by herself, but she lived in chaos. She was a hoarder. And the house smelled so bad. Like, I felt so bad for her and how she was living in this chaos with all these cats, and the cats were defecating. And you could smell it. We did the walkthrough, and that's where he was teaching me, like, look for this, look at that. We passed the bathroom, and in the bathroom, it was very heartbreaking because you saw like 8 to 10 different pill bottles, and they were like left open. Some were left closed. She has animals here. Like, I hope that these animals are not getting into this medication. She had so many medications all over the, her sink. Some pills were in the sink. It was chaos. And talking to her, it seemed like she just wasn't well. And it seemed like what we ended up doing was trying to get her to get in touch with her psychiatrist again to figure out what is the best course of medication for her. It seemed like she was overdoing it with the medication. What was the best course of action for her? And I know that investigator worked very closely with her because he was very concerned for her health and well-being. Eventually they found someone, I think it was through a nonprofit, to come in and help clean. And she was put back on certain medications that she stopped taking. She was bipolar, manic depressed. It was like a list, and it just wasn't good in the very beginning. But I'm glad to know like she's doing all right. She's doing okay. She's still living in somewhat of a chaos, but I think that was more of like she needed help than anything else.
So nice that you were able to provide that for her.
Yeah,
At
not a
least
lot of
get
people
it
do
started.
that.
No. A lot of people will walk in, oh, she's crazy, I'm out of here, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
like,
it was scary. It was really like, I always say it, like the living scared me more than anything, and it was heartbreaking. It was very heartbreaking. Like I really felt for her, because she really needed help. So, yeah.
And it's kind of scary to do because I've done residentials, and in the same way, I'm like, I'm not scared of what, like the ghost or something, but if there's, it could be dangerous for the investigator. You don't know who these
Yeah.
people really are, or it's some sort of setup, or if they're, mentally ill or anything like that. Do you have any advice for other investigators who want to do residentials?
Yeah, I say, like, you have to know what you're doing before doing a residential. Like, it's not just going in and doing walkthrough and talking to the person. Like, it's best to do a rapport. Like, when the investigator who brought me in to do that, he was talking with her for, I would say, like 2 weeks to get a better understanding of where she was at and where she was coming from. He thought maybe there was something there, but he had to go see it for himself. Second, after taking a class at the Rhine Institute, there's a reason why parapsychologists are inviting, mental psychologists, or inviting them to take parapsychology classes, because they want to start bringing psychologists in for these private investigations, these residential investigations, because a lot of times it is mental health that plays a part in a lot of these cases. And if you have someone who is studying to be that way and would be interested in participating in an investigation like that, that'd be great. But it's best to do your strict due diligence. It's not just talking to them for a day or an hour. You really need to build a rapport with them for a couple weeks, then do an appropriate walkthrough and figure out your course of action. But also to follow up with the client. It's not just, okay, well, this is what you need to do. Bye. We'll see you never. There's a course of ethics that have to be taken into consideration, like to follow up with them and see how they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very true. You speak perfectly. Because a lot of people just think it's going in, getting our video, getting all our machines up, routing everything up, getting our evidence. Okay, bye, see ya.
Yeah.
And you leave.
Evidence, and they just leave.
I think a lot of that, part of that was my journey too. I recorded everything I saw, like, oh, that's how you do it. Because that's what we see on TV. We just see them going in. It's just an hour. I'm sure it's like hours of footage that was cut for 45 minutes. And you see these people like talking to their clients. They walk in and then they camp for a night. And then here's what we found. All right, goodbye. And then that's what I think a lot of us think, but it's usually not done that way. So I was very lucky to have learned from these two gentlemen, what to do in cases like that. Fortunately, I mean, these are big guys. They used to be in law enforcement. So, I felt very safe with them. But also, like, part of your job is to be a detective. Just take the paranormal out of paranormal investigating, but you have to do your investigation, do your due diligence and see what's really going on.
Have you ever been hurt on one of your investigations or brought something back home with you or thought you did?
No, actually, I'm very grounded. I was always taught, like, if you carry that in your mind of something coming home with you, it's like an invitation that they're going to come inside. And I do, my brujeria as well. I picked up on tips, like I put black salt on my front door and my back door to prevent that. always make sure that I light my Palo Santo. I talk to my ancestors. I talk to my spirit guides. I'm like, protect me, guide me, and block anything that is not wanted in my space. I always say that. And I always say that in my head, like nothing's going to follow me home. You're not welcome here. And it's funny because I have friends who are psychics and mediums, and they come visit me. They're like, whoa. I'm like, what? You got a couple of things outside. I'm like, yeah, they stay outside. They stay outside. So yeah, she's like, yeah. If anything, the living scare me. There was one time where I thought I was going to get hurt. There was a man who was belligerent. He was drunk during an investigation. And he was trying to speak with these supposed spirits who were murdered in the past at this one location. And he felt that they were being exploited, and he was the conduit that had messages. And I was like, I've been investigating this place for 2 years. I've never heard, well, this is demonic. I'm like, no, there's nothing demonic here, sir. Like, I think it's probably the liquor that you probably ingested. And he was off the rails. Like, he got very aggressive with me, got very aggressive with a couple of other people in the group, got aggressive with the person that was running the investigation. And he ended up being kicked out. So that, I mean, if anything, that's my motto. Like, the living scare me more than the dead.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree. Have you ever had to like, oh no, I was gonna say, besides him, is it kind of hard to, like, I'm trying to work myself properly? You know, there's sometimes you have to work with people that maybe you feel, I don't know, maybe you're not, how can I say it? Maybe not fully, maybe they're like not telling the truth about certain things. Is it kind of difficult, like if you're going into an investigation and there's people there, maybe other investigators or mediums, and you're just kind of like, okay, because you know,
you mean the YouTube creators? Yeah. Let's call a spade a spade. Yeah, I've worked with some YouTube creators that I'm not going to say their name, and I've seen videos where they passed on fake information. I'm like, that's not right. You really ran with that narrative. Wow. Okay. But yeah, I just keep it to myself, and I try to respectfully correct them. And sometimes they do this thing where they get defensive, or they're just like, they kind of ignore it, and they just continue to, retrieve their own footage for their channel. I think that's the thing that they want more than anything. They just want the thrills and the chills, but they just don't want to look.
The likes and the followers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's this one YouTuber. She was doing an investigation of the Pomona tunnels, and she was talking about them during this investigation. And she was talking about this one story of this entity. And I was like, oh no, that's not it. She's like, no, it's one of the ghosts that haunted. I'm like, that's the story of the haunted house. That's fictional. They created that for the haunted house maze that they did. Right. That's a fictional character. You could find it online. It's part of their story for this haunted house in Pomona. There's no such thing as Mark the Mangler. Mark the Mangler never existed. and it was like, her face was like in denial. It was like, no. I ran with this narrative. We're going with it. I'm like, okay. And I saw the video, and everybody on the comments was like, that was a part of the scare factor, event that they. So,
yeah.
Do your homework is what another big piece of advice I have for anyone that wants to pursue any sort of investigating.
I was having a hard time. I was like, I want to word this like respectfully.
Yeah. I think that's where I see a lot lack is ethics and education. Mm-hmm. Another thing I see lacking is support. Dr. Lloyd Auerbach of the Rhine Institute has a hard time calling the paranormal community a paranormal community, because he's like, what community? Mm-hmm. I just see people lacking respect for their peers. I see people not supporting people that need that support. Mm-hmm. I don't see people having certain conversations that need to be had. It's really disappointing nowadays to see like this general lack of support from other investigators, and I mean even paranormal creators who are in the field doing, you know, the same thing that we are. But it's very it's a little disappointing at times. But there are pockets of support that I'm happy to see. One of these being, you know, your show is really great because we, you know, definitely want to support one another, especially female investigators as well.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, there's not that many female investigators, let alone Latina females. So I'm all up for supporting my fellow Latinas, all of us here, you know. So yay for us, man. We're gonna build
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, it's really good to see, like, especially like investigators of color. You don't see many of them too often, and I think that they're not getting the support and the praise that they deserve.
100%.
So very true.
Very true.
So very true. So you have anything coming up that you want to share?
Yeah, actually, well, I'm going to be investigating this old vintage shop in Little Tokyo that has a lot of stories. And there is a huge twist. There's a connection to the Manson murders through the story. Can't give too much of it away.
No.
Second, I'll be traveling to one of the most iconic paranormal places in our world, in our division, and that will be the Waverly Hill Sanatorium. I'll be going there in May, and I have a feeling I'm going to be so emotional because this has been like 15 years that I've been wanting so badly to visit it and just admire it and see what she has in store for me and my visitors. And then I think the new season of Ghost Adventures, I have 2 interviews that I'll be showcasing 2 of their episodes.
Nice. And when are they airing? Do you know?
I'm not quite sure. I just I did 2 interviews. They had me showcase a paranormal experience I had in one location here in Los Angeles called Heritage Square. And then they brought me on a second time as a researcher for another location in downtown Los Angeles. And that was really cool. I know that the show gets a lot of flack, but surprisingly, Zach Baggins has a lot of diversity behind the camera, which you don't see a lot of. And he still put me, you know, in front of the camera, even though I was like, I don't want to say these things. I don't want my experiences or this to be demonized. Take it or leave it. And they still put me in front of the camera. So props to them, you know, because they didn't have to do it, but they did. So yeah, that should be coming out. I'm hoping probably by the end of the summer, or probably midsummer. I know that they're still editing and cutting. So yeah.
Okay. That sounds like a lot of fun. Great experiences.
You're gonna have to send me the links when they come out.
Oh,
Yes.
I know. I'm waiting. I know. I'm like, when is it coming out? So we'll see. I know that they got
Going
done
to
with
have to come back and showcase the show and tell us all about the details behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, something did happen during my interview in the last place. It was a very gruesome hotel that wasn't the Cecil. It's not the Cecil. Surprise. But this place, the Cecil doesn't hold a candle to it. I mean, this place had a lot of serial killers, you know, do their bidding, and it was very bloody. But while we were in the basement of this hotel, there's a picture of it where I'm sitting. It's in my Instagram. There's dressers behind me. These are actual dressers that had been with the hotel since it opened in 1905. And while we were talking about one of the serial killers for the interview, we're going back and forth on the questions and answers. It sounded like something or someone was pushing the dresser. Like it was like an agreement, or maybe it wanted us to stop talking about the specific murder and serial killer, but it was so aggressive that, I mean, it stopped us mid question, and myself and the interviewer looking at each other like, did you hear that? Like, was that, he's like, yeah. I'm like, is there anyone back here? He's like, it's just the 2 of us. So it was so weird. It was the oddest thing. I'm like, well, that's an experience right there. That keep that noted.
You're gonna have to see it, definitely.
Yes.
And before we leave, is there one place you really want to investigate that you haven't yet? It's on your bucket list, and why?
Oh, the Trans Allegheny. I've always wanted to go to Trans Allegheny Hospital. That one seems like a really interesting place to go and venture to.
And what is it that is calling you about it?
I think it's a lot of its history. I think there's a lot of stories there that need to be told. And I mean, it was such a dark time in that location. There were a lot of people that suffered and went through so much. And I feel like a lot of them are still there and want their stories told. So it's really interesting to go in there to learn and to venture and to pay that respect to them at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to hear somebody else doing some history behind it, because that's one of my biggest things that I see a lot of investigators just going in and rousing everything up and not really wanting to find out their history or what the spirits there need to say, or a lot of the times they just want to be heard, or they're tired of people going in there and say, show yourselves, they just
That's that
it's,
they deserve.
yeah. No,
Oh my God. Yeah, it's true. It's
it's like,
true.
somebody coming into your house and saying, where are you? You'll be like, what the heck? Who are you? That kind of thing. And so I'm am one of those that loves to get the background from the spirits there, and then I go research it. So I go and I match the information that I receive
That's
through all the
smart.
history books and historical society, cemetery records, all that, because
Yeah.
then I know for sure the true story of that person, because it's
Yes.
not always told.
Yeah.
Properly.
Not always told. And sometimes they try to hide it around under the rug, because if it was somebody who got killed there because they didn't agree, or if it was a woman and there was just property in those times, or whatever it is, I always like to do that, and it's refreshing. Yeah,
It is.
yeah. So
I'm sure it's exciting because you're like trying to make a correlation with what you're picking up and what is
yeah,
actually facts. You're like, oh,
exactly.
that matched. That matched. Yeah, it's
Oh,
exciting.
yeah, it's exciting, and it's so invigorating when you actually say,
Yeah.
"Oh, yes, okay, here it is." And
Yeah. That's why I love bringing a really good psychic medium, because I know they're going to tell me something. They're like, Tammie, look into this. And it always, I'm like, you're right. You're right. You're right. Yeah. This all A, B, and C matched.
mhm.
That's so crazy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anything else that you want us and the audience to know about you, what you do?
Where we can catch you?
Oh yeah,
Really?
sure. Of course, you could follow me and my adventures on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Hollywood Paranormal. I think whenever Ghost Adventures releases their new episode, I'll be in 2 of their episodes of the new season. So keep an eye out for that. If you're in and around the Los Angeles area, on May 20th, myself and 2 other podcasters, LA Not So Confidential and Ellie Meekley, will be hosting a huge event called Macabre Mansions and Haunted History at the Heritage Square Museum here in Los Angeles, May 20th. So it's a haunted place. It's one of the places where I shot one of the episodes for Ghost Adventures. It's one of the places I had a paranormal experience while shooting a film there years ago. It's going to be from 7 to 10 p.m. It includes a ghost tour as well through their haunted mansions that they have on this property. So tickets are on sale on Eventbrite. They're $30, and it's going to be fun.
Too bad I live at other side of the country. Otherwise, I would be there.
Oh yeah, I wish you guys could be there. It's so fun. It's this location that has these rescued Queen Anne Victorians that they salvaged from the city of LA that they were going to be demolished. And each one of these houses has some crazy activity that I've experienced, that people who work there have experienced. It's insane, but it's going to be fun.
Good. Good. Maybe one of these days I do get out there and I'll meet up with you. You'll
Yes.
show me all these places.
We can have a little cafecito and go over there. And
There you go.
Then have a nice limpia, then just go to sleep.
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. That would be awesome. So anything else that you want to let us know or the audience know?
No, not really. Just doing some more adventures, and you could follow me on those social media platforms.
Well, one
follow
thing
me
I
on those
do,
adventures.
one thing I do want to ask you: how did you get into the costume? Um,
Oh, into the world of costuming.
yes.
I've always been a theater kid since I was young. And when I was in university, I went to Loyola University in New Orleans, and I found this amazing mentor who worked in the costume shop. And I needed a work study position. So I worked in the costume shop for 4 years, and I realized, like, I love doing this. I love creating and working in theater. And then it just kind of catapulted to me going into grad school. And then I met the right people who got me involved in shows and other theaters and Broadway and film. And now I work out of a university here in Los Angeles
Mm-hmm.
in a haunted theater. And I'm collecting their ghost stories. It's crazy. I'm collecting their ghost stories as we speak. And now the theater's going through a renovation. So there's a lot of weird things going on. Yeah. So yeah. And that's what I've been doing currently. So it's been really cool.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Great pleasure. Anytime you guys want to come back, especially if after those 2 episodes come out, come back and we really then could discuss more about it, because I know you kind of want to keep the surprise going so people can actually.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of crazy stuff that happened behind camera. No drama, but you could tell like some of the ghosts were kind of pissed. So, they were low key pissed at the back end. So
sounds like we need to look forward to it.
Oh yeah, we have a little cheese man.
Yes.
A little haunted cheese man. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Nice meeting you again. Thank you, Moon Girl, Sarah. And thank you, everyone. Hope to see you soon. Please keep sending us emails, messages, and tell us all about it. Tell us what you want to see. And who knows, maybe we could come up with that. Until next time, have a good one.
Bye.